beat up a lot. You just wonder, how in shape were they? That's all. So Tri-City Sports Network. Now back on Facebook Live here, where we were wanted to discuss the passing of Keith Jackson. Jackson was, they talk about the folksy man. He was the Heartland sportscaster. And, I remember Roy Firestone having fun with Keith Jackson, doing the impersonations. Then everybody did with the Whoa Nelly and, Fumble! There wasn't a whole, he used to say, how often do I really say these things and all that? But there was a presentation. There was also a bit of that enthusiasm with college football. They often talk about he was the original voice of Monday Night Football and was replaced by Frank Gifford because Gifford at the time was a huge New York and, for that matter, Los Angeles media star, and so he had more star power. And Vern Arledge understood, okay, Jackson, the Southern accent, Georgia, moving him to college football, maybe that's the best thing. And then having the big media type, the football star Gifford, on Monday Night Football do the play-by-play with Cosell and Meredith going back and forth, that would be the best thing. And it turned out that it was correct. Jackson, though, the superior play-by-play man, though, to Gifford. No question about that. And certainly, just always, the one thing that you got with him when you watched a ball game, it was charming. Watching a game with Keith Jackson was charming. Now, one of the things about Jackson is that, he worked with Cosell on Monday Night Football in 1970. I don't know how many people remember he worked with Cosell on some World Series broadcasts in the late 70s. And this has actually been something of a bone of contention to me because, my boyhood idol was Willie Stargell, and he hit the home run to win the 1979 World Series, and Keith Jackson was on the call. And Jackson did the right thing as a play-by-play broadcaster. He, called the home run, into the bullpen, it's gone, and then, all right, let the moment play it out. As the play-by-play announcer on TV, when a ball player hits a home run in the 6th inning of the 7th game of the World Series to put his team on top, you let that moment play out. Be it crowd noise, the game was on the road, or you just have them focus on the player as he runs around the bases. That's what Jackson did. And what really bothered me was that then came Cosell talking all over Jackson. Really losing the moment. I remember him going, Willie Stargell, the big man. And then he starts talking about his batting average in the series with runners on base. And you're like, the man probably just won the World Series. How relevant is that, Howard? And, I'm a big fan of Cosell. I think I've written articles that say I think he's getting shafted by the Pro Football Hall of Fame for the Roselle Award, which is given to football broadcasters. Somehow Cosell hasn't won it. And that's spite by the NFL. And that's not right. We've had Colin Cosell, his grandson, on this show. Just talking to him on Facebook the other day. So who would you like to see as the new, with Gruden gone, new color commentator on Monday Night Football? And he said, I'd love to see Tony Romo. And I said, how are you going to get him away from CBS? That's the question there. Well, the prestige of Monday Night Football, I'm not sure it works out that way. By the way, the morning line now, it appears that Matt Hasselbeck is going to call with Sean McDonough the Pro Bowl on ESPN. So Matt Hasselbeck is now the front runner to be the color commentator on Monday Night Football next year. They're going to give him a go around. Some talk about Rex Ryan. He did the backup game on opening day on Monday night. A lot of people didn't really like him, but nevertheless, he is the personality. I will tell you, if it is Hasselbeck, I still, and again, total speculation, but if they're looking for 3 in a booth, I wouldn't be surprised if that third person in the booth, not that I'm a big fan of hers, but I think that it would be that what did she say next type of element, Jamel Hill. Like I said, I've never been that big of a fan of Jamel Hill. Don't really agree with her takes. Often I find that she tries to go places she shouldn't. She does that a lot of times. Be it saying that a player should have batteries thrown at him, be it calling, Donald Trump a white supremacist, whatever. I'm not a big... But the thing is, in the business, it's get people to talk about you, get people to tune in. What do they say next? And if you're going to go 3 in a booth, I know of no better member of the media in 2018 who does that better than Jamel Hill. Doesn't mean that I agree with much of what she says. Anyway, back to Keith Jackson. Since we're talking about people who used to do Monday Night Football, think about that. Everybody, what the last living Monday Night Football announcer, well, Fran Tarkenton did some in the 80s, and so he's still with us. But then, it's Al Michaels, and Dandy Don, Giff, Cosell, Jackson, Arledge, they've all now left us. Bob Greasy, however, worked with Keith Jackson very memorably in college football, and he had these things to say about working with probably the person that is most associated with college football. In fact, Jackson said he knew his place in sportscasting did Jackson, according to his former broadcast partner, Bob Greasy.
He loved what he was doing, and he knew that he was kind of the torchbearer for whatever sport, whatever company that he was working with, and he was just a true gentleman. It was really a pleasure to sit there and just watch how he treated the fans as they came by him.
All right, Tri-City Sports. Now, how did Bob Greasy explains how Keith Jackson came up with all his signature sayings.
He would come up with these weird sayings that we all became to love, and like the Big Uglies and Willie Nelly and all that. I said, Keith, where do these sayings of yours come from? He said, Grease, he says, when you grew up in the farmlands of Georgia, out in the sticks, he says they're in there, and they just somewhere along the way they're going to come out.
I know it's people try to stay away from this now in sportscasting, and I've heard some really bad people try to put signature sayings locally. Does anybody remember Chuck Jones calling ETSU football? I think that's one of the reasons why they dropped the program. He was so bad. But, preferencing everything with football fans. Football fans, it's 1st and 10. Football fans, the ball is on the 20. That was just awful. But, I've heard, bad sayings. I know there's one high school announcer, not around here, but a guy scores a touchdown and he likes to say, give that man a cream turkey sandwich. Ugh. Ugh. I know one color commentator in high school basketball around here. All he would do is come up with sayings. He never would break down the defense, never tell you what would happen. He'd only say, roars, soars, and scores. And that was the extent of what he gave his broadcast. And it does make people aware of you, but if done poorly, it will make you sound like a hack. As those 3 examples I gave you right there indicate. Jackson, much like Dick Enberg with Oh My, he knew how to do it. That was something that came natural. The Big Uglies up front. All right, we can relate to that. And he used to say, how often do I say, whoa, Nelly? I mean, I think that was sort of romanticized by Roy Firestone. I think Roy Firestone initially, I used to hear him do that, and he would make fun of broadcasters in his impersonation, saying they were too, they were too folksy, if you will, or too down home. That was sort of the shtick, and I think that's one of the reasons why he sort of gravitated to Jackson. But then what he found out is that impersonating Jackson, Roy Firestone did, he only made Jackson that much more popular. Bob Greasy talks about being associated with Jackson the legend as well as another legend.
I was very fortunate in my life to be associated with two legends. Don Shula when I was playing, and then Keith Jackson when I retired and went into broadcasting.
Yeah, but the problem about being associated with Don Shula. He was associated with Don Shula when Don Shula was the coach, cock of the walk in the NFL. Second half of his career, Don Shula couldn't win the Super Bowl with Dan Marino and only went there once. And, never gave him the running back. The defense was usually suspect. The case right there. Don Shula 1990s was a little bit different than Don Shula 1970s when Bob Greasy played for him. Now I think that the same thing can be said with Mike Tomlin. Great quarterback, doesn't get all out of his team, doesn't get the maximum out of his team, but somehow is untouchable. You figure that out. Colin Cowherd's next. I'll be here tomorrow as well, noon to 2. I'm Marky Billson, Tri-City Sports Now. Thanks to Steve Forbes and Joe Rexrode. See you tomorrow.
WEMB Irwin, 1420 NBC Sports.